Godzilla, the infamous Japanese kaiju. We've all seen the movies, we all know what Godzilla is. Godzilla was originally released in 1954 and distributed by Toho. The plot of the original movie is when the Japanese freighter Aiko Maru is destroyed near Odo Island. Another ship, the Bingo Maru, is sent to investigate, only to meet the same fate with few survivors. A fishing boat from Odo is also destroyed, with one survivor. Fishing catches mysteriously drop to zero, blamed by an elder on the ancient sea creature known as Godzilla. 10 frigates are dispatched to attempt to kill the monster using depth charges. The mission disappoints Yamane, who wants Godzilla to be studied. Having survived the attack, officials appeal to Yamane for ideas to kill the monster. But Yamane tells them that Godzilla is unkillable, having survived H-bomb testing and must be studied. After a 30-meter tall electric fence fails to kill Godzilla, Yamane returns home troubled by the realization that Japan has no plans on studying Godzilla. Emiko tells Ogata about Serizawa's research, a weapon known as the Oxygen Destroyer, which disintegrates oxygen atoms and surrounding organisms die from asphyxiation. They use this device to kill Godzilla, and Yamane believes that if nuclear testing is continued, we may see another Godzilla. It's here that the movie lays its heavy hands on the viewers, that Godzilla is actually social commentary on how nuclear energy and its weapons are destroying the global environment. The original film, titled Gojira, a portmanteau of gorilla and whale, appeared amid the economic boom of Japan's post-war period, at a time when H-bomb testing in the Pacific had created a climate of fear about radiation in Japan. Godzilla also has roots as a mythic personification of natural destructive forces, the earthquakes, tsunami, and typhoons that have regularly struck Japan over the centuries. During the 1980s, Nintendo defined video games and became a household name thanks to the success of the Famicom. Nintendo had its hands in other endeavors, from taxis, card games, and even love hotels. Hiroshi Yamauchi joined Nintendo in 1949 as president. Nintendo at the time were producing playing cards. Nintendo became a toy company during the mid-1960s and eventually became the company we know today. Yamauchi's philosophy was to build a reputation for promoting family-centric playtime, which is why Famicom, Family Computer, got the name that it did. So we had a post-war Japan trying to make a comeback from the devastation of World War II, and we have a thriving gaming company making gaming products that were family-focused. Enter Godzilla, monster of monsters. The mysterious planet X appears when Pluto and Neptune switch positions in the solar system, and its inhabitants began to attempt to conquer the Earth, using a legion of space monsters as their primary attack force. The king of monsters, Godzilla, joins forces with the guardian monster Mothra and the forces of Earth to repel the invasion forces. The game features two playable characters, Godzilla and Mothra. The player uses both monsters in turn by selecting the desired character on a virtual game board, representative of the planet it is on, and moving it like a chess piece. Each space is a hexagon that represents playable side-scrolling levels. There are rocky zones, jungle zones, city zones, hyperspace zones. The hyperspace zones feature the fights with Mantango, Dagora, and the Goten. The alien spaceships resemble the design of Atragon and the War in Space. Each board contains several monsters from the Godzilla series and some of the other Toho movies, and the objective is to clear each board of enemy monsters before advancing to the next board. Battles are fought when the player moves Godzilla or Mothra adjacent to an enemy monster and are reminiscent of a match from a fighting game. Player plays a small side-scrolling level for each space advanced, and if one has moved adjacent to the monster, a battle follows the side-scrolling stages. More monsters appear on each stage until nearly every monster in the game is featured. When the player reaches Planet X, every previous monster is present along with King Ghidorah himself. The monster battles have a time limit of 40 seconds, but lack a countdown timer. So with all of that in mind, what if I told you that someone found a haunted Godzilla NES cartridge? Welcome to the Godzilla Creepypasta. Cosby gets the cartridge from his friend Billy after purchasing an NES, who also gave him some other games like Legend of Zelda, Bomberman, and this weird title named Action 52. So the game starts off like normal, and he eventually reaches the first boss, which is Godzilla, an obscure squid kaiju that never made it to the US at the time, and wasn't in any Godzilla movie. So for those of you who have ever played the original Godzilla NES cartridge, you know that Godzilla is known for immediately cheating the system and backing you into the corner and doing the jumping tentacle attack. While it does no damage, it burns out the clock. You only get 40 seconds to fight each boss. Once the timer runs out, it goes back to the board and the boss gets to regain some of his health. Now here is when Cosby notices the first issue with this cartridge. When Godzilla does that spam attack, the game starts glitching out, as you can see here. Cosby yanks the cartridge out of the NES, blows in it, and tries again. Cosby defeats both Godzilla and Mogera with no issues, and makes it to the next level. When Cosby makes it to the second level, Mars, Titanosaurus is strangely in Varan's place. Titanosaurus wasn't in the original Godzilla NES cartridge. In fact, there's only 10 kaiju in this game, and Titanosaurus was not one of them. On the Mars level, you have to fight Godzilla again. Cosby beats Godzilla before it could use the spam tentacle attack, but the sprite doesn't sink to the bottom when Godzilla is defeated. Godzilla is devoured by a glitch. As you can see here, the entire screen is glitched out, and there are eyes all over the screen. Cosby realizes something isn't right about this version of the game, but he presses on. Cosby gets to the Mogera battle, and Mogera is glitched. He's twice the size he should be, and significantly harder. When Cosby defeats Mogera, Mogera shatters to pieces and melts away. There's a random bird in a cage in the top right-hand portion of the screen. When Cosby gets to Titanosaurus, he's worried about a glitch, but there's surprisingly no glitch. It's just a normal battle with a monster that wasn't included in the original version of the game. The next level is supposed to be Jupiter, but instead, Cosby is taken to Pathos. Pathos is the same layout as Jupiter, except Pathos is blue and not green. All the level icons have been replaced by a blue rock icon and a honeycomb stage. For comparison, this is what Jupiter is supposed to look like. Cosby notices that Biollante has replaced Hedorah, which doesn't make sense because Godzilla vs. Biollante was released in 1989 and this game was released in 1988. The soundtrack to Pathos is completely new as well. It starts out slow and suspenseful, much slower than any song in the game. But every 12 seconds or so, there would be a loud crashing sound and the tempo changes. Cosby plays the level and it's very different. It's dark blue with a red moon. To Cosby, the mountains look like shredded paper. On this level, there are no enemies to be found either. Also, I want to point out that the point counter is glitched and it kind of looks like a man wearing a mask, possibly next to a space shuttle. The orange honeycomb level turns out to be something of straight nightmare fuel. There are tons of Mantango spawn enemies, and the soundtrack is replaced by screeches and loud drum beats, which sound like it belongs to a horror movie. Cosby makes it to the rematches of Godzilla and Mogera, but they're essentially completely different monsters at this point. Mogera is now a flying machine that attacks with its front tentacle like a spinning corkscrew. It still has the eye beam, but now it comes out of the corkscrew tentacle. This monstrosity is what replaces Godzilla. It moved much faster, would run and jump around, and constantly swung its arms, making it difficult for the player to get close. It tried to use the corner spam technique, but Cosby defeated it by using tail whips and heat beams. Notice how the point counter now looks like Japanese writing and the last symbols look like a plant or a tree? Cosby goes to fight Biollante and it starts out in her rose form. She's immobile and uses her tentacles to keep Cosby at a distance. Biollante takes most of the damage at its body. The point screen is now completely garbage. Here we see Biollante in its final form, and I just want to point out that it looks incredible for an NES sprite, almost 16-bit. The battle was much the same as before, except Bio's tentacles did more damage and Bio could do an acid spit. Cosby jumped over the acid spit to avoid the damage. When Cosby finally defeats Biollante, the music stops and there's a new icon at the base. This icon was not there before defeating Biollante. Cosby gets a feeling of dread when looking at the red masked icon, but in order to advance to the next level, Cosby must move Godzilla to that mask. So that's it for part 1. What happens when Cosby gets to that red mask? We're going to have to find out in part 2. Remember to rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next chapter of Godzilla Creepypasta.